Welcome back to Walk with TFB. Tim Bryson here, and as y'all know, I'm a Black millennial who is eager to have unfiltered conversation with authentic people centered on education, sport, and culture. Today, we are walking with an influencer, a PhD student, and DEI educator. An Atlanta suburb native, she completed her undergraduate experience at the University of Georgia, where she earned a bachelor's in history. She then went on to work for the College Advising Corps, a Chapel Hill-based nonprofit whose mission is to increase the number of historically underrepresented, low-income, first-generation college and high school students who enter and complete higher education. While an advisor, she worked with a high school who had a STEM pathway program, which further prepared her to lead and create change at Iowa State University. While in Ames, she created a program series for women in STEM focused on how to support them academically, professionally, and socially. But she was just getting started. Our guest is currently a doc candidate in the Education Leadership, Policy, and Human Development program at North Carolina State University. Her research focuses on Black women in STEM, Black women graduate students, and diversity, equity, and inclusion education and training. She is also a graduate research and teaching assistant, a former vice president of the Black Graduate Student Association, and academic mentor for college athletes. She's a Black woman addicted to airline miles. She's a podcaster, and she's one of my most inspiring and motivational peer mentors who asks us the following questions. If STEM is the future, why isn't it serving everyone interested? If it's not serving all those interested, how will STEM truly expand the future? Through the Southern Regional Education Board Fellowship, she is tackling this issue head on, and I'm excited we get to learn with her today. So without further ado, y'all help me welcome the one and only future Dr. Chelsea Smith.
That's so good. It felt like a Baptist church introduction.
Come on, Chelsea. You know how we do this, man.
It was so good. I was like, dang, I did all that.
Come on, man. And every time people say that, I'm like, yo, like the one thing I'm gonna do is make sure that people know who the fuck y'all are. Like
you be hyping me up. You always hyping me up.
No, you do the same for me, yo. But how you feeling? Talk to me.
I'm good. I'm so happy this semester is over. It's wild because I'm not taking nobody classes, but I'm happy that it's over.
Yeah.
Home in Atlanta for the holidays. So I'm geeked about that. About to cut up with my cousins. My grandma got me on her payroll right now, going to the store and stuff.
Yep.
But happy to be here. Happy to be walking, man.
Come on, man. It's long overdue, but it's really the right time. I'm going to say that, and we're going to talk more about that in our upcoming segments. But first things first, yo, like what's bringing you Black joy right now?
Oh my gosh. So I would honestly say being able to travel again, even though that's questionable, but being able to travel again. So I just went on a trip this past week. I don't even know what day it is. I just went on a trip and it was so fun. It was relaxing. I felt like back in my element. I love being in the airport by myself. So that's bringing me joy. And then just being back home with my family. I'm excited to be here. Like I haven't been home for an extended amount of time in like 2 years because of the pandemic. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm ready to go home too, yo. I'm ready to go home too. And I'm glad that we get to do this conversation really the day before I do go home, because in doing research on who you are, what you've done, what you'll continue to accomplish, I even learned some things new that I did not know prior. And I'm glad I did, which means we have a lot to discuss.
Yes.
And then one of the things I saw was that you also transferred.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I would obviously plan on talking about this.
You also transferred. I'm sorry?
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that about my education journey. I was a transfer student, actually a 2-time transfer student. So even more niche, but yeah, I transferred. First, I went to North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride. Loved my experience there, but I'm from Georgia and it's obviously in North Carolina. So out of state tuition was not the move. And I had family stuff going on. So it was best to come back to Georgia. So I went to Georgia Southern University. Absolutely did not vibe there. I remember begging my parents at orientation, like, please don't make me stay here. And they're like, girl, bye. So I stuck it out for a year. And I met some of my best friends there. So I loved it for that reason. But then I ended up going to UGA. the summer before my junior year and finished out there. I still graduated in 4 years. I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but I got out of there. Still didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do though. So, but yeah, I was a transfer student. So I am a proponent and a fit for college and like options because I don't think I had any of that. I was like a quote unquote high achieving student. So people figured I like had it together and all that. But I'm also first gen. So it's kind of like I had no idea what I was doing. My parents had no idea what they were doing. So it was just like college is the only option. But outside of that, it was like figured out. So it took me 3 schools to figure it out, but I did.
Yeah, here you are now, but we're gonna dive deeper into it. And so, segment one, like, what is Chelsea's story? What's your story?
Yeah. So you already talked about me growing up in Atlanta, and I feel like I took that for granted until I moved out of Atlanta. And I know Atlanta is like the mecca of the South. Anybody can fight me on that. Everybody loves Atlanta. Everybody want to move here. Everybody want to come visit here. But to me, it was just home. So I like grew up here. And then when I left Atlanta, I took for granted like all that it had to offer as far as culture, being around Black people, being able to get my hair done down any street, just stuff like that. I'm an only child, which some people say they can tell I'm an only child, but some people say that they can't tell I'm an only child. I don't know. That's the way the cards were dealt. I say my parents got it right the first time. So it is what it is. But I think for me, like growing up, I was like a little nerdy kid, but I was like a cool nerd. And that really kind of influenced like who I grew up to be, because I still would say like I'm a cool nerd. But with that, like I grew up focused so much on school that I didn't really know anything else, like besides like doing well in academia. And I didn't realize how that shaped my life really until like probably my mid-20s. For some good and for some bad, honestly. So yeah, I grew up here. I was a cheerleader. I played golf. Call me little Tiger Woods, y'all. Yeah, and so I had a great childhood. I had such good parents. They're still alive. I have such good parents who still support me in everything that I do. Um, and yeah, it was a great thing, but I didn't also realize how much I didn't deal with in my life until I like became an adult. And it's hard to say because a lot of times people like you had a good life, you're so privileged. And I am. I'm privileged, I'm blessed, but also like I'm still a human being. And so I've dealt with that a lot in my mid to late 20s and now my early 30s. So, and I think a lot of it started with me transferring um, in college. So I felt like that was one of the first things I started to do for myself and not for someone else.
Mm. So talk more about this, especially this academically high achieving status, designation, projection. I mean, whatever word we want to choose there, because you said you finally started, whether come out of it, realize it, address it mid-20s. But what did it look like prior to addressing? And then how are you then addressing, but really maybe learning and unlearning some of the things that you were socialized and are forced to do as a young child?
Yeah, so it really started in like elementary school with being in like the high achieving classes and stuff like that. And I grew up in like a small kind of community during that time in my life. And I remember being in the gifted program, Target, and whatever they called it in all these other places.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the only Black student in the program for a while. And I did not realize like how isolating that was until like I would have conversations with a lot of the people that were in the program with me, and they would just talk about like the shit they were doing with their families or like ask me questions about my hair and all that. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. But I didn't start to conceptualize that until like later on in my life. In middle school and stuff like that, it was fine because like I started being around more like high achieving Black students. So it made it feel more comfortable. And then something that's wild. So I went to a magnet high school, but I ended up going to the high school that I was still district for. And I wanted to go to that high school regardless. I was like, I have to get in that magnet program because my mom's like, if you don't get in magnet, you're not going there. You're going to the other school you got into. Like, you're going to be in magnet. Like, and I was like, oh, I got to get into this school because like all my friends were going there because I was district for it. I had already made the cheerleading team and everything. So I did end up getting in there. And I'll backtrack and say, like, when I was in that, it was a magnet school for research and medical sciences. Child. And I was like one of the few people in that program that was like, I don't want to do nothing in the medical field. Like, I'm just here because this is where I wanted to go. And my mama said I had to. And all my friends are here. So, of course, I went, I did well in school. It was a great, like, I won't say one of a kind, but it was a very unique high school experience. I got to like intern at a hospital my senior year, be in live surgeries, stuff like that. So it was cool. But I wanted to go there for myself. And then after that, I started to realize like, oh shit, like these people came to this program with this plan and like I still don't know what the hell I want to do. So when I went to college, and I think that goes into that first gen status, right? Like my parents wanted me to go to college. I did want to go to college as well, and it felt like the natural next step, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I wasn't really aware of careers outside of like, doctor, lawyer, business person, engineer, like teacher. I wasn't aware of careers, so I was just low key winging it when I first went to college. Shit, I was winging it most of the way through, to be honest.
That's honest. But at some point, I mean, again, you transferred twice. Shout out to all the transfers, by the way. Worked a little bit. Shout out to College Advising Corps, but then said, I'm still gonna go back to school, not once, but a second time.
Big clown shit. Oh my gosh. Well, I first will backtrack and say College Advising Corps literally changed my life. Like, it was a hard job, but it was like one of the most rewarding jobs. And it kind of started to allow me to conceptualize some of my own experiences prior to college, like lacking guidance and all that. And granted, I had more resources than a lot of the students I was serving, but a lot of the same issues with access and knowledge and being first gen, like I lacked all those things and I didn't realize that until I'm providing those services to someone else. And so it really changed my life because there I had my supervisor, she was my mentor, still to this day, shout out to Dr. Yarborough Peoples. She like literally was one of the first person who like externalized that, like, it's okay to not know what you want to do, but like you're a badass, you're brilliant, and figure this shit out. And she's like one of the first people in my life to ever, really conceptualize that. And then she was like young, like early to mid 30s. She already had her PhD. And I was like, I want to be just like her. Like little 23, 24-year-old Chelsea was like, yes, like this is finally somebody I can look to that has a career that looks tangible. And so, yeah, so being in that program really changed my life. And I did a lot of shit when I was in that program, like always being like kind of a go-getter. I'm like, if I'm doing something, I'm gonna do it all. So I like interned there for a summer, one of two students, and I was a part of their first intern program. And I also was a data and policy fellow with College Advising Corps. So yeah, that organization really changed my life. But with that, I found out about higher ed and student affairs. So I had no idea what higher ed and student affairs was prior to being in College Advising Corps. Because I knew I wanted to be in education at that point. I finally had convinced my parents that like, this is what I'm going to do. And I had no idea what student affairs was. So my supervisor mentor was like, have you thought about this? And I'm like, what is that? And then she like explained it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds amazing. So then I started looking for grad programs in higher ed and student affairs. But I had no idea about graduate assistantships, tuition remission, none of that. So I was getting the help that I needed earlier on when I'm looking at grad schools.
So. Okay. So I gotta preface this for the people that are listening. There is Ohio State, and then there's Iowa State.
People still be thinking they the same thing.
Don't listen. I'd say if I'm from Ohio, they said Idaho, Iowa, wait, Omaha. Like no. There's Ohio State and there's Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Both large flagship public schools, whatever. Why Iowa State?
Oh my gosh. So yeah, Iowa State. So my friend Dr. Austin Like, he's one of my colleagues at College of Corps. He kind of helped me navigate the process because he was like in the cohort ahead of me. And so I'm like, I want these things for a grad with a grad program, like a social justice, diversity focus. I want there to be Black faculty. I don't want to pay for anything, or I want to pay as little as possible. And I want it to be out of state. So he gave me like a list of schools that had all of those things, and Iowa State was on there, Ball State, Vermont, like a bunch of places. And I'm like, Austin, I think Ohio State was on there too. And I was like, Austin, I'm not going to none of these places. Like, so he was like, well, this is what you said you want. So, and that was the thing. My preference was I wanted it to be out of state because like outside of that year of going to school in North Carolina, I had never lived outside of Georgia, and I wanted to get out of Georgia very badly. So I had to just look at the schools on that list, and Iowa State really caught my attention. At the time I was applying, Dr. Natasha Kroom was still working there, Brian Burt. So I was like, okay, this might be cool. This might be cool. So I end up going to their like I-Days and absolutely loved it. And I'm like, first of all, on the bus, or not the bus, yeah, we had a little shuttle bus coming from the airport. I'm passing nothing but cornfields. I'm like, where the am I? Like, where am I? Like, it's crazy. But when I got there, I loved it. So once I got there, they told me about this scholarship for like racially underrepresented students called GMAP, the Graduate Minority Assistance Program Scholarship. And so if I got in, I would qualify for that scholarship. And so I didn't have to pay anything to go there. I think I paid like $400 in student fees. So yeah, it was crazy. And then it was just like getting out of Georgia was something I wanted so badly. If I had to do 2 years in Iowa to do it, I was going to do it, and it ended up being free. So, well, virtually free.
Yes, that's fire though. And so I want to take it to segment 2, right? Which was again the focus on education, educators, this season. And at some point during, I mean, for sure, confirmed during your grad experience, your master's experience, you identify like a doc being something that you're interested in pursuing. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to learn more about why a doc, but also what else were you considering at the time post-master's?
Yeah, I will be honest and say I was not considering anything else post-master's. I put all my eggs in one basket. I think I applied to one job. Wow. But yeah, why a doc? So I pretty much knew probably since my like senior year of college, I wanted to be in education. And I kind of knew that I wanted to get a PhD because I had heard like to move up in education, to get paid in education, you need to get a PhD. Learning that's also a fucking lie, but we'll get there. We'll get to that. But yeah, so pretty much as soon as I started my my master's program, I was like, I wanted to get a PhD. So I called Yarborough, Dr. Peoples, and was like, I think I was 2 weeks into the program, right? Like, okay, so I want to go get a PhD after this. And she's like, slow down, girl. You just got there. And I was like, I know, but I want to. I know that I can do it. So please tell me what I have to do while I'm in this program to go get a PhD after this. And she was like, okay, you do these things. And I listen when Dr. Yarborough People speaks, I listen, honey. Okay. Because she ain't never steered me wrong. So I did that. So I told my professors, like, I want to go get a PhD after this. So like, what can I do? And the light is giving not what it needs to give, honey. Okay. And so I told them, and so I really kind of tailored my experience in my master's program, which was highly like practitioner focused, to prepare me to get a PhD. So I joined Dr. Brian Burt's research team, BRG. I started doing some research stuff in my required internship. So like I had told my supervisor that I want to get a PhD, and she was like, have you ever written a literature review? And I was like, no. And so she was like, great, here you go. Here's how to write a literature review. I want you to write a literature review on this. And so that's how I ended up doing that program series.
Mhm.
on Black women in STEM because I wrote a literature review about like barriers for Black women in STEM, and the program was a natural, practical based piece for it because I was doing an internship. But yeah, I at the time I don't think I knew why I wanted to get a PhD. Besides, like I heard that's what it was supposed, what I was supposed to do in education. Um, but I started to learn like how much power and leverage I would have with that, with with a PhD. And I'm just a naturally curious person, and so it was um, the most logical thing for me to do. Also, I loved my students, and for the time being, my assistantships and internships were good, but I didn't like none of that work in like higher ed and student affairs. Like I didn't like none of it. So I was like, well, some gotta give. So it's just like we going for another degree, baby.
And how many schools you applied to coming out of Iowa State?
I think I applied to five or six, six because I originally applied to five, and then Texas A&M got pinned on kind of at the end, and then they end up being like in my top two. Um, so where I am now, and then Texas A&M,
What's top two?
yeah, were my top two choices at the end.
This is perfect. This is perfect. And so I want you to talk more about why you chose NC State. And I read about it, and we're going to talk about the
Yeah.
Queen in a second, because your decision to attend NC State is directly correlated with the work you're doing now.
Yeah. So one of the top reasons I attended or chose to attend NC State was to work with my advisor, Dr. Joy Gassingale, the president of the Association for the Study of Higher Ed, full professor. She's just a baddie. But the cherry on top was getting the SREB fellowship. And once I told Texas A&M about that, they was like, oh yeah, no, we know we can't compete with that. But I was like this close to going to College Station for real, for real. I was also ready to get out of living in college towns. That was another thing. I had lived in Athens, Ames, Statesboro, which is also a college town. So so that helped a lot. But yeah, to go work with my advisor, she was doing work on women of color in STEM, and she is a Black woman, and I was really honed in on having a Black woman, a Black advisor, but more specifically a Black woman advisor, in my doctoral study. And yeah, NC State was great. I actually applied to NC State for my master's and I didn't get in. So back then didn't want me. Now I'm high. Y'all paying me to go there. So, but you know, everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. Cause I honestly feel like if I would have went for my master's, I probably wouldn't have stayed for my PhD. And, you know, life wouldn't be what it is right now.
I mean, fair.
Yeah.
And we're going to jump. And one of the biggest things I've seen on Twitter more recently is that one of the first questions those people ask doc students and doc candidates is like, one, obviously when you graduating, which don't ask us that, but then two, about research. We're going to talk about research second. And first start our conversation, or third, but first start this conversation about socialization of doc students in grad programs.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to get your initial thoughts on this because I have plenty that I'm going to write about soon. But
yo, you trying to co-author? Because baby,
I told you I don't like writing APA. I'll do the pod.
I'll do the APA. You just put the concepts and context. I'll do the APA.
All right, deal. Easy.
All right. Bryson Smith 2023 coming, y'all. I can't commit to 2022. I'm trying to graduate.
No.
Okay, wait. Ask me the question. Doctoral student socialization.
Yeah.
This is something I am so passionate about for many reasons. One, for my own journey, because like you have different types of people coming into doctoral programs. You have people who are fresh through the education pipeline. I was like semi-fresh because I came straight from my master's. And you have people, specifically in our field at least, like who have been working for years and decide to come back to get that final terminal degree in our field, right? The common denominator is none of us know what the hell we're doing. Like, none of us know what the hell we're doing. But you're at the point in education where people feel like you know what you're doing because You already have these degrees and these life experiences. And that's not to say you don't come with valuable skills and experiences. However, you don't know how to be a doctoral student. And this shit is not like any other school you have ever done. It is not like any other school you have ever done. And I would say it's not hard. Like nothing about this content that we're learning is difficult. The part that is hard is like managing it all. And I don't think that programs do a great job, or the industry field do a great job at teaching people how to do that. And so people are flailing until it's time to write the dissertation. And then that's another thing. You don't know how to write a dissertation. You've never written a dissertation before. I was getting feedback from my advisor, and she was like, I know this is probably hard to hear. And I'm like, it's not hard to hear at all, girl. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never written a dissertation before. So like, I'm just taking it as it comes. Like, but yeah, I think better preparing, or at least better articulating what this journey looks like, is a huge part of the socialization piece. Also, you don't got to be smart to get a doctoral degree. Some fight me, and they don't get mad because I know you girls like to tussle, but you don't have to be smart to get a PhD either. You just have to work hard. And they don't do a good job of articulating that. Lastly, this is where we vibe so much. You don't, these grades, like abolish grades, first of all, but especially at this level. Like, not, I've gotten 2 to 3 degrees prior to this, and you're gonna tell me I still got to get a grade? Bye. For what? Because people are so focused on their grades that they don't understand what they're doing. And so when you get to the ending, culminating part of this program, or these programs, which is a dissertation, you don't have any idea how to like self-evaluate your work without some type of number or letter tied to it. And so then you're not able to incorporate feedback, and then you keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm speaking this from experience, as someone who's currently writing a dissertation, but also someone who is a TA. And I'm trying to like break my students of that now. Like, let that hurt go, baby. You don't got to get that straight A 4.0. Like a 4.0 in a PhD program is not the flex that you think it is. Mm-mm. It's really not. Mm-mm. And I would love to hear like what the audience would have to say when they listen to this, but it's really not, because when you do the work, you're gonna get the grade. Like at this point, if you can't follow directions, then like it's just like what you're gonna do. But, and that's not to say you have to work extremely hard. You have to work extremely hard, but it's not the same kind of hard as it is when you were in undergrad, or even in my master's. Like, this is so different because, one, when you come here, they be expecting you to know stuff. Like, I feel like in like other degrees or educational experiences, like I'm just learning. They like teaching me things. Now they're like expecting you to know it already, kind of, and then do something with it. And yeah, if you don't retain it, if you didn't retain it along the way, you low key SOL.
So one thing you brought up was about like teaching us how to do this, right? It's new. It's new for everybody. Mm-hmm. And the first question I wrote down was like, do they have to? Like, is it their responsibility to? And I asked that for a couple of reasons. Well, you know my answer. The answer is yes. But I asked that for a couple of reasons. One, I work in career development. And so like seeing both my cohort mates, but also years above and below, that's crazy to say, below now, like trying to navigate the career piece. Like, I don't want to go faculty. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go faculty. So if I want to be practitioner based, so how do I still develop these experiences to be competitive in this different, applicant pool? But two, my biggest frustration, particularly the socialization of doc students, again, we have lived experiences going through this process and seeing it with our colleagues now, is that for full-time staff who are also doc students, we often get ignored. Yeah. And I say ignored, not in a disrespectful sense, but to say that the priority focus is on full-time students.
Yeah.
Especially those who are working either on a research team or, in a fellowship, et cetera. I think that's where I struggle because, again, with this whole like APA and everything else, I'm like, look, as someone working in the field right now, no one is reading this, period. No one's reading it. And so one of my biggest, and I like everything you said about working hard, the grades piece and what have you. But my thing is like if we want to, inform policy, research, and practice, we have to then think more creatively about how we prepare and socialize doc students to then share their research in more accessible and public ways. Yeah. Right. And I think that's just what frustrates me. And I think, go ahead. No, go ahead. It's your podcast.
No, that's where I've been for the past probably, I'll say, year and a half. Because I'm like, what the hell am I doing this shit? Like, writing this shit. Who's going to read this? Especially, like, my work is close to my heart because I do work on Black women. And I'm not going to go and do research on these Black women, or I'm not on with these Black women for it to be in vain, for it to get clicks and be cited. Like, that's cool for this field, but that's not what I want to do with my work.
There, I agree.
I also don't want to work in student affairs. So you see the contention. But I know at this point, like I said, this degree is leverage. So at this point, it's kind of like I can have those feelings, and I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna get a job and do what I want to do like what I came to do. I don't have to take the path that is like most followed in this career. Or two of the paths that are most followed in this career, because I don't want to be a student affairs practitioner. I don't want to be a higher education administrator in some regard. There are certain things, like if I could work with grad students, specifically doc students, about socialization or professional development or something like that, would love to do something like that. The things that we were just talking about, the things that we are not necessarily being taught. And I won't say I haven't been taught these things completely, because I have a dope ass advisor, but the majority of the people in this field are not getting, I'll say in this field because that's my experience, but I would argue getting PhDs. Because even I hear people say, like, I'll go to things for doc students and they'll be like, oh, in your lab. I'm like, everybody don't do research like that. So check your language.
I don't even go because they ain't talking to me.
I was like, my lab is the world.
They don't even, yeah. No, for real though. But you keep talking about leverage. You mentioned it, I think, 2 or 3 times now. And to this point, and our point that we're making about socialization, much of the conversation, at least at the master's level, is like, if you're thinking about a PhD, you're thinking about doing research, or you're thinking about becoming tenure track, or you're thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. But to your point, there is still leverage and a lot of leverage in power, amplification, and access, and earning a doc degree. Not even earning, and just being in a doc program.
Yeah.
And just being in a doc program. And so I want you in particular to talk more about this leverage that you're referring to before we dive into some of the research that you're doing and have done thus far.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of this degree being leveraged, in this process being leveraged, is you understanding how to leverage it as a verb, right? So it's leverage as a noun, but leveraging it as a verb. Because if you're doing this, in a strategic way, you're obtaining lots of skills that can be used across the board. You're talking to people, you're building relationships, written communication, oral communication, learning about strategic planning. So if you are doing this in, a productive way, then you'll be able to leverage those skills in many facets after, in the postdoc realm, but even in the realm that we're currently in right now. Like, and I'll say for me, I've done research, lots of research while I've been in here. I have 4 pubs. But I've done an internship doing assessment work. I'm on another research team. I've done work with TRIO. I've done work with College Advising Corps again since I've been in this program. So I'm building my repertoire, continuing to build on my resume and my skills to be the most marketable when I leave here, and to use leverage as a verb. So like, not only do I have this title, but I also have these skills as well. And so like, where are you gonna find somebody that got all 3? Like and I'm a Black woman, so where you gonna find somebody? And I know you gonna find some, because we're dope. Black women are dope. We are doing all these things, and I'm taking advantage of those opportunities. And
Yeah, like
so, and it's really setting me up in a place, and I'm honestly outside of higher ed.
in what way? Because for those doc students who are listening, and they've asking, right? How does this degree translate or transfer? How are you positioning yourself now
Yeah.
to
First of
opportunities
all,
outside of
I'm in
higher
these
ed?
LinkedIn streets, and LinkedIn ain't really, from my experience, a place for higher ed conferences and like, stuff like that is. Um, but yeah, I'm out in these LinkedIn streets, first and foremost, but also like just talking to people, because it's easy to look at, the degree, or like seeing like, okay, well, yeah, they have this degree, but then you sit down and talk to somebody. So I've been on LinkedIn having informational interviews, applying for jobs that I wouldn't quote unquote be qualified for in in a different time, or if I wasn't like actively putting myself out there with those skills and leveraging myself, right? But because I am doing that, I'm able to like be at tables or put my name in rooms that it might not be in, because I've been in this field, in this space for a really long time. And then also just trying to be aware of your other options, like being aware of options outside of being a practitioner, or an administrator, or tenure track faculty member, because like that's like the cream of the crop in this field. Like, oh, you going tenure track when you leave here, for people who want to pursue academia, like, so being able to understand your options outside of this: consulting, ed tech, academic directing, like almost every corporation has some form of education or professional development going on. And the skills that I'm getting, have gotten in this degree, and the experiences related to this degree have prepared me for roles such as that. And they're paying double, triple what I would be making as a tenure track faculty member.
And shout out Drake, seeing double making triple. Chelsea,
Period.
you know what I'm saying? Drake is the GOAT. But we haven't talked about your research, and I wanted to make sure we center this in this conversation, because it's going to tie directly into diving deeper into postdoc career plans and career decision making.
Yeah.
So, what is your research agenda? Who are you researching with and or for, and with whom? Talk to us.
Yeah. So my research agenda focuses specifically on blackness, being black people, specifically in the STEM space. So looking at the experiences of black women, not women of color, black women, because it's often conflated in literature. So dissertation come in 2022. Y'all can read about it. But yeah, so black women in STEM programs, and so black women are some of the most educated, you know, constituents in the like higher education landscape, but they're not being projected to some of the highest paying careers and industries. And so really understanding their experiences is what I hope to accomplish, in order to set them up for success, in not only literature but in tangible ways as well. So being strategic about who I'm working with, and who I'm including in my research, in order to make sure that it's getting in the right hands, in an accessible way. Because I know that someone who is running a research program or a STEM enrichment program is not like, clicking on the literature all the time. But how can I give them a brief or sit down at the table with them and say, this is what I found, this is what your students are actually saying, and this is what could be done. And really just being fascinated about the experience of Black women in higher education, one from my own experiences, but now like being an educator, an elder millennial in the game, like understanding these experiences, and now like I'm somebody's mentor. And so it's like I want to create the best possible scenario for you. You know how like people like, I want you to be better than me. I feel like now I'm at that auntie level where I'm like, I want you to be better than me, baby. So, but making sure I'm using the privilege I have to make sure they can be better than me. And then diversity, equity, inclusion, education, I think is something that's really near and dear to my heart. And I don't want to do diversity, equity, and inclusion research and work in a space where it keeps getting done and nobody's still doing nothing with it. Like,
Mm.
you can write 73 papers on it, but if nobody's doing anything with it, what is the purpose? So taking it and putting it in the hands of people who actually need it is what I want to do with this work. Um, and I think that translates directly into what I want to do when I leave here.
So, but like, what have you uncovered so far?
Yeah, so one of the things I've uncovered, specifically with DE and I work, is that people do not understand the difference between diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like they just be throwing the words around. So that's one of the biggest things. And I also think that people feel like they can train their way out of, you know, being bigots and racists and homophobes and transphobes, and it's not possible. It's not possible. And then people are always speaking of how it's the system. No doubt it's the system, but the system is made up of people, and until you change the people, then the system will never change. So really focusing on like that first level change to create, larger change is something that I'm really passionate about in DE and I education, and making it accessible because everybody ain't getting a PhD. Everybody hasn't sat in a CRT class, so they really don't know. They really don't know.
This is a question for you. It's a good question, I think. How are you making your work accessible and your honestly your findings accessible and your analysis accessible in these different spaces?
Yeah. So I one talk a lot about DE and I on my podcast, and granted, that's an audience. I think the audience of my podcast that I do with my bestie Rachel, we talk a lot about um, equity and inclusion related topics on there. And so that audience is, I would really say, outside of that academic space. And so having those candid conversations in like a way where it's funny but truthful is really making my work accessible to people.
Yep.
As far as the work I'm doing like in the education space, being strategic about that, like I know that I have the skills, and but sometimes I have to market myself in a way that'll make people want to listen to me. And once I get in there, like then I'm like, okay, this is true. But also coming to people from a place of love, I think now so everybody don't, need to be approached like that. Like sometimes I might have to cuss you out. But for the most part, when I'm going into those spaces, coming into a space of love, coming into those spaces from a place of love, I think is what makes my work, being able to disseminate my work and my teachings in an authentic and accessible way.
You started in fall 18?
Fall 18.
Dr. Chelsea, fall 18.
Ooh,
We about to go into spring 22. And you told us on this podcast, during this walk that, oh, maybe you didn't, but senior track that ain't it. Like, we ain't doing that.
if I didn't say it, that ain't it.
Yeah, it ain't it. And so what are you considering? What are you pursuing? What are you wearing right now? What's up?
Yeah. So I love, love, love. I love teaching. So I am still looking at some like what are clinical roles,
Mm-hmm.
professor of practice roles, roles like that, because I really do love teaching, and I can't say that I'm so passionate about like what doc program should do if I'm not trying to plug in and be the change, right?
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
looking at those roles, but really looking specifically at um, looking at, I would say, training and DE&I education in the corporate sphere, the nonprofit sphere. Um, ed tech is really hot right now. So looking at ed tech roles, I am also looking at some roles in admin that are specifically related to graduate students. So working with graduate students is something that I'm interested in, and then DE and I roles broadly. Um, but I'm not even gonna lie, I'm trying to get paid. Like I'm trying to get paid. Like I'm not doing it for the money, but I want to be compensated for the dopeness that I'm going to bring into whatever space that I'm going to be in. And to a return on investment, because I've been in grad school as a full-time student for 6 years straight. So your girl has been lacking in the income space. And so I got to get a return on my investment. So that's also another reason that I'm looking for jobs outside of higher ed as well. And I know higher ed ain't going nowhere, so if I feel the pull, I can always come back, and I have the skills. So I could do a little APA.
Yeah, I'm not doing that shit after I graduate.
I'm dead. I'm looking at my backpack and my APA manual is right there.
I'm not doing none of that shit. I barely do it now. I mean, I don't cheat, but I don't.
Listen, you do what you got to do.
That's
to
it.
Do what you want to do.
That's it. I'm about to ask you a question. Because me and my best friend talk about this a lot, about salary and compensation. And her and I have been a lot more open and transparent about like, yo, like, what are they offering? What did you come in with? Why is it, 10, 15, even 20K short than what you told them? And so how are you? Cold word out here. It's a cold word out here. But you mentioned salary. I want to make sure we talk about this, especially for doc students who come out. Because again, I'll say we as someone coming out of my master's program, I settled. But how are you identifying the worth and the salary that you're in jobs that you're applying for, and making sure you're not getting lowballed?
Well, one, you didn't settle because it ain't over. This is where you at right now. But
appreciate that.
Say for me, I'm gonna be honest, and a lot of this is public information. So for my doc students who are listening to this, who are thinking about tenure track, if that's your love, your bread and butter, and that's what you want to do it. For public state institutions, these salaries are public. So I encourage you to go look at them and then if you need that in helping you guide your decision. I say a lot of people who are in this field know that they're not doing it for the money. But for me, I'm looking at jobs that have a lot of the skills that I possess and see what they're paying people. And so once I see what they're offering and paying, I'm like, okay, bet this is my worth. And then add this PhD on top of it, because now a lot of the jobs I'm looking at, because they're outside of the higher ed space, don't require a PhD. So I'm like, y'all are paying this for someone with these skills, and I also have this level of education. So let's go add a little tax on that too. And even then I'm learning now in the job search that salary is such a strange thing, because like people be trying to like, so what salary are you looking at? Like, why are you just not telling me what salary you offering? So I was in a job interview the other day, and she was like, okay, so like, what are your salary expectations? This is the first round interview. And I was like, at this stage in the process, like, it's hard for me to say, but like, what budget are you all working with? And then she tells me the budget. And I'm like, okay, bet. Well, I'm looking at this range. Mm-hmm. So does that mean like, I will not be able to move forward because of that? And she was like, I'll talk to, the next person up. So I don't know how it's going to go, but like, that ain't the job for me.
Yeah, you settled no.
Yeah, no. I can't do it because like, I literally just can't. In all transparency, I can't afford to do it. Like, now granted, being candid, I've been making $25,000 for like the past 4 years, give or take some side hustles to add a little more. Mm-hmm. So, a bitch get 40,000, I'm rich. Okay. But
true.
But I know that I have acquired skills and competencies and a level of education that is worth more than that. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm compensated for that. And unfortunately, if I have to leave higher ed to get that compensation,
I'm gonna do it. You got to do it. Yeah, you got it. That's why I said I settled. But you're right. My story's not done yet. We're still writing it. But to your point,
famous one day, I'm like, "Where? That's my boy Tia."
I ain't gonna be famous. It's for my money, bro.
You already low key famous, bro.
It's for my money, bro. It's for my effing money. It's all I want.
Like, and people be looking at you crazy because let me not say that word. People be looking at you wild. Fix my language. Looking at you wild when you be like money. But it's just like, okay, well, first of all, we live in a capitalistic society. So what you want me to do? Die? Second of all, like, I deserve to be compensated for all of the hard work that I have put in. Yes, it was my choice, but now it's my choice to be compensated for it too. Like,
but you said the podcast episode name probably 5 minutes ago, it's gonna be return on investment. That's what it is. I mean, there's a lot of effed up things happening in higher ed and education in general, but a doc degree, A conferred degree is an investment. You gotta run a check.
No, and then I'll be looking at these jobs now, like the higher ed, they'd be like, here's a pizza party. I'm looking at these jobs, they'd be like, reimbursement for gym membership, unlimited PTO,
Yes,
14 weeks paid maternity leave. I'm not having no kids right now. So, but like all these things, and a higher ed be like, pizza party, t-shirt,
that's a dead
jeans
move,
on
bro.
Friday. Like,
That's a
girl,
dead.
what?
No, that's a dead move.
And I can do it from the comforts of my home.
I'm gonna connect you with Zach. He was on earlier this season.
Yeah.
Zach Shirley, he's in ed tech doing DEI work. But taking us to segment 3, which is directly related to your postdoc career. How can I, but also how can our podcast community best support you? Number one, but then 1A, 1B, if you will, the Black women who are in STEM, but also graduate students as well.
Yeah. So I would say one about me, if you're hiring, check out my LinkedIn. I'm sure my boy TFB will link it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the markets right now, so help you girl out. Connect with me. I come with a lot of great skills. But yeah, I think for the work that I'm doing, if you work with Black women, listen to them, pay them, give them opportunities, lift them up, and Black students in general, I think. I would also say if you are a doctoral advisor, like sit down and reflect on the experience that you're giving your students, or and think, if I was in their shoes, what can I better do? Because I think like I want my peers to have the best possible experience they can. And a lot of the onus is on doc students as well. I didn't talk about that, but I would say that like it ain't all like what they can do for you. You got to do something for yourself at this point. Like this is business. But yeah, so help a doc student out, a full-time doc student, and a part-time doc student. So somebody working full-time. And lastly, go listen to my podcast, Two Happy Hoes, HEAUXES. It's French, but not really. Go listen to my podcast. We have some dope topics on there. Like I said, I hold true to my promise. We talk about a lot of equity and inclusion topics, and we make it accessible, we make it digestible, and we're funny as fuck.
1,000%. 1,000%. Matter of fact, y'all's podcast was, I think, the first podcast I ever listened to.
For real?
It came out January 2020, I think. 2020?
Yeah. January 2020.
Remember the first episode? I think I texted you. It was when I was in the airport flying to Austin. You talking about the rainbows?
Yes.
At the club, the bars.
Yo.
And the nail polish.
You went to South Carolina. You saw some rainbows.
Yo, I was crying with it. But the nail polish took me out. That's the one that really took me out, bro. Okay. I'm gonna say that I ain't gonna put them on blast right now. Everybody just go listen to the first episode, the very, very, very first episode of Two Happy Hoes, and you'll get caught up. You will get caught up.
We're about to have our 2-year anniversary.
Yeah, dang.
January 3rd.
Dang, that's great. That's wild. That's wild.
No.
No. Before we move forward and do these quick hitters, what have you learned about yourself through this doc experience, really through this higher ed experience as a whole right now?
Oh my gosh.
What are you learning about yourself? It's a better question to ask.
Yes, I would learn that you are worth more. I have learned that I am worth more than what I can produce and do. And that's a lot of what I was saying. Like it took me a lot of learning and unlearning into my 20s, I'll say mid 20s. But yeah, I'm worth more than what I can produce and do. And it took me a long time to realize that. And that I'm a whole person outside of this school shit. And, I nurture and tend to her before I tend to student Chelsea. Always.
That's good. I'm so proud of you, yo. I'm so
Listen,
proud of you.
about me, I'm gonna take a nap.
See, I'm the opposite. I can't take naps no more.
Good
I
for
don't
you,
know.
bro. Because
I don't know what
I
it
wish I
is.
couldn't. I be feeling childish.
I mean, I'm not saying there are a lot of moments where I don't do anything. I just lay
Okay, but
there.
you got somebody's full-time job.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Listen, bro. Like when we co-author this paper, part of it has to be full-time employee, full-time staff who are also in
We can
school.
tailor the whole paper to that if you
Oh
want.
my gosh, bro. Like people don't understand. And that's why I told somebody the other day, and it's not a secret. Because me and Marshall, she was on our podcast last season.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a business. She lives in Georgia. I think she's from Atlanta, outside of Atlanta. But she kept saying, like, you gotta post, you gotta post, you gotta post, you gotta post, you gotta post. And I take that personal, yo. And so I told somebody, I'm gonna post, I'm gonna LinkedIn my way into my next job, to my next opportunity.
LinkedIn,
Bro,
I don't even be on Instagram no more. It'd be LinkedIn. Wake up
I
in the morning,
tried.
click my LinkedIn.
You see my post, LinkedIn. I tried it. 770 million, bro. People are on that platform looking.
Yo, like the job interview I had on Friday, I got because somebody slid into my DMs on LinkedIn.
I'm saying, I'm saying, but these next questions are about to be funny. Cause I know who you are. Well, know a lot about who you are.
We're about to derail the whole conversation.
Yo,
This is the real her.
Yeah, nah. But your favorite, before we bounce, your favorite sports memory?
My favorite sports memory?
Yeah.
Like from me doing sports or just in general?
Either you competing, watching, tailgating, anything related to sport.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is so funny. So I used to play basketball in like elementary school and middle school, but I've always been like a girly girl. This is really not even me, it's my dad. So I was playing basketball and I insisted on wearing a ribbon in my ponytail while I played basketball. So we on the court and I'm fixing my ribbon and my dad is yelling from the stands like, don't worry about your damn hair, just play ball. And that's the point I knew that it was time to hang it up. Hang up the high tops after that season.
Yeah, that's actually on brand, dog.
That's actually on the court in the middle of the play.
That's actually on brand. Next question for you. Your top 5 artists.
Oh,
top 5. No
top
rank.
5.
Yeah, just top 5. They all number 1. The top 5.
Blank. Beyonce.
Okay.
Dialing. I'm just playing. Beyonce, definitely the Queen. Adele.
Oh yeah, you going to that concert, right?
I'm going in London. I manifested that. We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah.
I'll say Drake. Fuck with Drake. Sinead Harnett. She's a British R&B singer.
Oh yeah.
That's my girl. And then, oh my gosh, top 5. Who have I been listening to?
You need one.
Giveon.
Oh yeah. See, Giveon. Like Giveon's music is. He's somebody that can put me to sleep. Quick nap.
Wait, I'm gonna take Giveon back. Sorry, Giveon. You'll be honorable mention. Calvin Harris.
Calvin. Okay. I don't know too much Calvin.
Calvin. The beats are. I got to see him live in Vegas. I think in 2015 or 2016. Oh my gosh.
I don't know too much Giveon. I mean, too much Calvin Harris. It's a funny question. If you could go to brunch, is you plus 5 people. Any time in history, living or deceased, you plus 5 people. Who are you bringing? Bottomless.
Bottomless?
Mm-hmm.
We eating. Okay. Michelle Obama.
Okay.
Oprah.
Okay.
Beyonce.
Okay.
You about to laugh. But I feel like I want to see them eat. Like I want to go. I want this person to come just so I can see them eat. 21 Savage. I want to see him eat. Okay.
You want to see 21 Savage eat?
I just want to see how he is when he eating.
That was one of the funniest.
He looked like he smacked his food.
Yo, that was one of the funniest days on Twitter in my life. When people found out he was British.
Okay, and the last person, y'all might want to fight me, but this is a businesswoman, baby, and she be scheming. Kris Jenner.
Oh, that'd be an interesting brunch. I'm gonna pull up another chair for Rachel. Rachel gotta be there for that one.
I've been to plenty of brunches with her.
But I want her. I need her to be there at that table when you eat.
Okay, but we swapping out because we leaving 21 now.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah.
Where my boy 21 is still gonna be there.
Hey, 21, he underrated. He one of the most underrated rappers of all
He
time.
is, but I'm from Atlanta, so I've been on 21.
I know you have. He got bars. Like he can rap.
Yeah, no, he can. Knife
He can
talk.
rap.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's my. I'm gonna play that now. I'm gonna play that in a second.
Period.
Wow, Dr. Chelsea. Last question, man. Who do you
I'm
want to
nervous.
see on the pod? Who do you want to see on the podcast?
Who do I want to see on the podcast?
Yeah.
I feel like you done had a lot of dope people that I already love. Who do I want to see on the podcast? Has Brittany Williams been on here?
Mm-mm.
Dr. Brittany Williams.
Not yet. You know her?
Yep.
Talk to her.
I got you.
Talk to her. Her Twitter account is A1.
Yeah. Dr. Brittany Williams.
A1. Okay. She's like Minnesota.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's a dog. UGA dog, that is.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, I would say Rachel and her boyfriend, her partner.
Ooh.
Like they would be. I don't know if you do like double whammies, but I think that it would be an interesting dynamic.
We're going to, next season gonna be a little different, so we're going.
Oh, so like, but they're both in education too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Williams, no doubt.
Talk to Brittany. Rachel, Rachel knows you're coming. I just gotta figure out timing wise. Anything else you want to share with the people before we bounce?
Again, follow the pod. Be on the lookout. Bryson Smith 2023 paper. Yeah, I think that's it. Hire me and pay me my worth.
And pay you, hire me and pay me. Let me tell you this, Dr. Chelsea. You and I could have talked about a plethora of different things. Plethora of different things.
Come on, SAT word.
You know what I'm saying? Plethora. PLETHORA.
You do got to be smart to get a PhD, y'all.
Just a little bit, or just download the damn dictionary app. But what's I going with that? Oh, that's one thing I appreciate about you and about us. We can be agile. So we need to turn up. We can turn up. We need to talk academic talk. Talk academics. Talking night talk. What's up? How you want to take this?
Both of them, because I live my life doing both of them every day.
Come on now. How you want to take it? What's up?
Not one thing I would say. Dissertation while I'm slinging bricks in the headphones.
Okay. On this note, we about to cut his mics off.
I said on the headphones, y'all.
But Chelsea,
if I was slinging them in real life, I would have way more money than I have.
No, you ain't. No, listen. Anybody get this podcast reported? No, sir.
If my podcast ain't been reported, you good, bro?
Your podcast, yeah, I can't. And to be honest, here's the funny part. When I initially set out on this podcast journey, I wanted my pod to be reminiscent, what I got going on. And I was like, God damn,
I love your niche though.
It found me.
I love it.
To be honest, it found me. I wanted to be whatever. It found me. It found us. So I'm thankful.
Yeah. I think we tried too hard in the beginning. And now we literally talk on our podcast like we talking on the phone.
Yeah. You can. We don't know. Well, I didn't know that. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Y'all funny. Y'all just funny people.
that's literally, if y'all ever, that's how we be talking on the phone with each other.
Y'all just funny people. You see, you get me off track. One thing you wrote about, though, one thing they wrote about you in this grad school website post about you was you told grad students, particularly doc students, to give themselves grace. Mm-hmm. Not be so hard on ourselves, yourselves. And so I'm here to tell you, give yourself some more grace, yo.
Yeah, turn it off. I'm gonna cry.
Give yourself some more grace, yo. You're gonna knock this shit out, this out. Come spring 22. We celebrating. You're gonna be employed with your salary that you earn. But give yourself more grace. We walking, we moving.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate you, Dr. Chelsea. Everyone else, thank you again for tuning in to that episode of Walk with TFB. Look forward to having more filtered conversation with authentic people centered on education, sport, and culture as we progress and continue to walk through season 4. But as always, until then, welcome.